Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we're going to be checking out some tracks from an act named Relentless Pursuit, the first of those being Fortress. And if we switch over to here, we're also going to be doing a song rating for the first track. I'll be giving it a score on certain areas out of 10. We'll go through that in the individual track conclusion. We've also got another couple to look through as well, with Fortress being the first. We're going to listen through each of these tracks from start till finish. We're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Nice to start with some keys. Great unison between the strings, keys, and vocals. Double tracking. Oh, marching drums with triplets. I mean, it's just fantastic to switch to the drum group. It's so ambitious, really. This is one of the most varied pieces I've heard from Relentless Pursuit, because I've reviewed their music before, so it's just nice to have it. It's just great to have that fading out of the low end there, just a bit of variation there, to have the higher leads hover there, moving with a bass and drum fragment below. The growls are really solid. You are the love of my heart. So we talk about wanting to have a further connection with God and that kind of relationship. We're also sounding viciously angry in this part. I'm assuming that's to show the intensity of that passion there. I think the production is solid though. I'm really happy with how that's coming through. Some really wonderful major harmonies here with the third triads. Or the thirds. And great use of bells there with the rhythms. Interesting tail there, actually. The legato through that passage was really nice. No, that's really positive. I'm really happy with one. I thought there was a lot of love put into that. I'm just going to finish the scoring and then we'll go talk about this track more in this pseudo sub-conclusion, I suppose. So my thoughts on overall on this track, I think I gave it an overall score of about 7.2. I thought that the track at 5 minutes 15 had enough variation structurally and compositionally to keep me interested throughout. You know, we had pianos at the start, gradually going into the guitar, in drums and piano, and varying intensities of different riffs there, going between like half time in some parts and normal and double time there, so the rhythms were strong. The drums were really elegant. There was a great flow between different cymbal patterns there, even some really cool sort of ride stuff with the bells with some blast beats contrasting that in regards to intensity. And ultimately, I thought that the guitar parts, the rhythm guitar parts, flows those harmonized leads there with the major third modulations there were kind of dope. The bass nice and thick and full on the low end there, not overstepping too much. Just checking through the verses again, I think this track is more about the things that he's gone through to this point and wondering whether he can find a place to sort of like be safe and secure, potentially, you know, or with the help and the love of God and everything like that. There's a lot of spirituality in relation to this, which again at face value, as I mentioned, may seem a little bit kind of like a bit of a juxtaposition considering how metal it is, but there's no reason why you can't make metal that is that, and you know, that way. It's not like all metal is satanic, you know what I mean? But I think that the growls were executed really well. The clean vocals were good. I can't help but feel like we're gonna get a bit of that tone from the top of the mouth in there. I'm not sure if how it would affect the tone if we kind of went through the back a little bit more when we were singing. But that's as someone who is only just starting to get the hang of how the actual function of singing works as part of my job. I'm trying to understand that better because previously I haven't had a lot of understanding of the actual technique involved. I'm not saying that the vocals should have been done differently. I'm just noting that there was a little bit of kind of upper kind of like mouth voice in there, if that makes sense. But that's okay. I think that we had there were beautiful harmonies we sung. It was nice to have the keys as the accompaniment at the earlier section there, and I think that you were sort of verging on it being a bit more anthemic as you went along. So structurally, performatively solid. The track, again, like there was a lot of variation within it. I think that the production in general was fairly good as well. You know, it was quite clean with the guitars, bass, drums, keys, and everything. The cleans might have been a little bit too loud in regards to some of the growly parts, but I think then some growly parts were, so it's just basically allowing for dynamic range. But that's a good start. We got track number 2 now, Automated Catastrophe. I'm liking the variation with the percussive layers. You can tell that the percussive samples we had earlier were recorded in a different room to the guitar. I'm wondering if the guitars were DI'd or something like that, or if they were room mic'd. But that's okay. Could we allow a little bit of extra decay on the noise gate for the guitars? So that just so they kind of go da 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 da, like that. So they kind of, I mean, like, to be fair, if you want it to be tight with the rhythms, that's totally fine. I was still talking about the technological kind of like artificial intelligence aspects that we discussed in the previous set of tracks. It's so ferocious with the double kicks, man. Oh, panning to the right, nice. Swirls around the headphones. But I do appreciate the switches to the piano. I know this is a shorter track and we're resolving back to the piano and strings like we did with the earlier thing, one Fortress. There's a real sense of gravity and drama to the way that things are coming together here. Okay, Relentless Pursuit's track, Automated Catastrophe. So with this song, are we discussing the concept of whether or not who we are in that state? Is it whether we're discussing being the AI being accepted by God, or is it like us as a product of that being accepted by God? Is it like how what we do with technology, how it's going to affect our ability to sort of like be accepted by how? I'm not sure. Like, I think that's what it comes down to. With the previous track as well, we're discussing sort of topics of wondering if we're good enough, wanting that attention, that care, that support there, that love. And I don't know if we're wanting it to be unconditional, but either way, it does kind of make you wonder how far we are, straying away from it with all the crazy stuff that's going on with robots and everything. But this track, I think the way that we came in with that really interesting sort of reverb, eerie sounding percussion with the drums, guitars, and everything with the frenetic kind of 30-second kicks was a really great contrast. Like, compositionally, there's a lot of diversity within these two tracks so far, and that's something I really appreciate. If you have too much of the same thing, it can become a bit dull. And Relentless Pursuit at this point, they've really got a knack for making interesting music, and maybe it's just because I'm really anal about having enough range in there, but I appreciate that there is. Because I just think if you want to make tracks, like, not just from like the perspective of making music, because if you're making something you can do whatever you want, but if you're trying to make music that people might also be into, one of those things is creating lots of little kind of things where people go, oh, I like that. Oh, that's a different thing. I like that. So it's great that we have that. There's a lot of variation to the guitarist for not just sticking within the major minor shapes. There's some interesting chromatic stuff, working with single string bits as well, which is kind of dope there. It rolled around. It almost sounded a bit progressive and gentler parts. There's lots of chugs there. Again, lots of really cool patterns on the drum kit with the bass and guitar helping out. The piano at the end, though, a real kind of weight and just it was almost very dire sounding with the way we played those, and the strings going wah wah, like kind of legatoing their way through the procedure. It lets you know that it's almost like a funeral march or something like that, as if that the decisions we're making and discussing within the heavy track with the guitar, bass, and drums are impacting in that sort of sad, undesirable consequence of the pianos and strings. I think shorter form factors do typically work with this kind of music in the sense that you get a feel for everything in a shorter taste, and I do like when we can compact it like this, but I think that Relentless Pursuit at this point is able to do both shorter and longer tracks. I've got a lot of love for their ability and capacity to do so. Not an easy thing. But yeah, it's great. I'm happy with this one. But yeah, track number 3, Reason Beyond All Comprehension. Let's go. Oh, very dire with those chords there. Da 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 da. Is those diminished by 5s? Or is it augmented? The vocals kind of dominated the drums there for a bit, but you could still kind of feel the kicks underneath. Yeah, it just keeps rising, man. It's crazy with the speed. I will dismantle the infected drives of control. So I assume the system that we were discussing in the previous track, I've realized that it has strayed too far and we are seeking to demolish it.
There shall be no mercy upon you.
I like the filter on that voice there, a bit of distortion there. It makes it sound like it's going through a radio speaker. And there's these moments where just things pause completely and you're left thinking, whoa, what's going to happen next? And boom, they smash into it. I know this isn't the first track to have done that, but it is effective when it occurs. Or is it the robots saying that we're the virus? Is that the angle that they're going for? I am listening to the track. Cool tom fill. And offbeat hi-hats. I wasn't expecting to have the synth pads at the end. I don't mind that we have synth pads at the end. It's like, wow. It's like, oh, what's happening next? Are we switching to a new thing? But then it's the end of the channel. It's the end of the track, should I say. And you're left wondering, oh, what was going to come from that? So I suppose that, because I understand that this was part of like a bigger concept album. And I think that it's fantastic, again, that we're exploring philosophical subjects, especially related to AI. Like, I know that a lot of, there seems to be two camps, people viscerally terrified of AI. Actually, there's three. Viscerally terrified, completely indifferent, or completely for it. There doesn't seem to really be a mid-between between those two, unless people who feel those ways just don't really voice their opinions, which makes, to be fair, that makes complete sense. Why would you voice your feeling about something, Cure? No, you know, you could voice that you're kind of unsure about. But anyways, we're getting distracted. Look, this track, again, is a shorter track than the first, a bit longer than the second that we had today. It was great to have the angle of, like, wondering whether it's the human or the AI kind of deleting stuff. I think that it's almost like the robots, I know it sounds blasphemous, the robots become the god. it has become destroyer of worlds and stuff, and it's trying to delete human beings. That's my comprehension of it. We had these really tense, uncomfortable harmonies on the guitar there, especially from the start, where I think we went from like the equivalent of like if you have like a 5 and a 7 on the fretboard, and then you move to like the 4 and 7, if that makes sense. That's the kind of chord I think we had going on there, the chord progression at the start. And it's very simple, but it kind of aligns itself, it kind of breaks itself and fixes it, but not in the way which is particularly satisfying. It resolves itself, but in a way where there's still a lot of tension. And we played around with uncomfortable intervals between the rhythm and lead parts there. The vocals with the growls and everything like that contrasted well with the talky bits there, where we were the AI, the person talking about deleting the virus. I thought that the synth, I'm not sure what the synth pad at the end was doing necessarily, but again, it was great to have, the mixing in general was pretty good. But I can understand why this track is related to the first two. I think it's an interesting series of events. And ultimately, I feel as if this is a really positive direction that we're going in with this. I think that there's enough variation, again, like the first two, with the amount going on with the riffs. And yeah, I feel like there's enough variation going on with the riffs that are within the track, and yeah, it's really heavy, so we're obviously off to a good start with that. But it's not heavy for the sake of being brutal. We're trying to make art here, and well done. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Relentless Pursuit. We listened through Fortress, Automated Catastrophe, and then Reason Beyond All Comprehension. Now, there's stuff to appreciate about each of these three tracks. I spoke about them individually, including the score I gave for Fortress, and I thought that as a longer piece, Fortress had quite a nice sort of amount of scale to it, with a lot of variation with different riffs and grooves and everything like that. The guitar playing, the combinations of the piano and strings, with eventual kind of guitar, bass, and drums, which presented itself through most of these three tracks, and then the synth pad at the end of A Reason Beyond All Comprehension. They were a nice set of instruments to use, and the story overall that I got from this is just a continuation of discussing of us wanting sort of like a place to be loved by God, to kind of be able to either be absolved of our sins or find a way to go away from those feelings that we have of regret or pain, etc., and be taken care of. I think that with Automated Catastrophe, I was wondering whether we had gone too far with the AI and everything like that in the system, and whether we were actually going to be reparable or actually going to get out of it in a way which is beneficial or at all. And then Reason Beyond All Comprehension was a track where I think we were kind of discussing, I'm still not sure whether we were the virus or whether the AI was the virus and they were trying to delete something, but either way, it wouldn't surprise me if we're talking about the AI getting to a point where it could decide whether or not to delete humans, for example, or the virus or the malicious code. So again, as a philosophical album, as like a concept thing, it's really good. I should note that I think this is the Mechanisms of Destruction album. That I haven't mentioned that already, but I have now. So I think that is out at the moment. There are releases for it on YouTube, so if you want to go check out that after this video, I'd recommend going and doing that. But the story is there. I think we need the other tracks to kind of get a hang of like the whole entire concept. We're off to a good start. The vocals in these tracks were either the growlies, or we had some clean vocals in Fortress, for example. We also had some talking that went on in Relentless Pursuit's Reason Beyond All Comprehension, as well as potentially Automatic Catastrophe, but we were either singing or we were talking or we were kind of doing the growls. And I thought that we had strengths in all those different areas. The clean vocals sounded very tuneful. We harmonized quite neatly. There were even some sort of bluesy sort of intonations with some of those harmonic phrasings there, which were kind of dope. And the vocal technique was solid. We were comfortable in a head and chest voice. I think a lot of the merit of the vocal technique came through with the growled vocals there, the vocal fry there, the lower voice there was fantastic there, that we projected quite well, I think, and it sounded really huge in the mix. The talk-spoken parts about, again, trying to either computer service trying to find the virus, etc., that was just very authentic and made sense. It needed to be non-emotional in order for that to make sense. With the vocals of Fortress and some of the parts of Automatic Catastrophe, I wasn't always sure how the growls kind of made sense with the story that we were telling, but I think it was meant to sort of invoke the passion involved, so that's okay. So yeah, I think the vocals were done well, and I think they made sense for the most part with the lyrics. The tracks, again, at 5 minutes or 2.5. We could do the longer tracks, and we could also do the shorter tracks. Each of the Fortress was more through composed. We didn't necessarily have a verse chorus thing going on there, which was totally fine with me. I don't need it to be formulaic in order to be good. And I think, again, starting with the keys and then eventually moving into variations of those guitar-based drum combinations with the strings and pianos before it was kind of like the inverse of what we had going on with Automatic Catastrophe, where we had a lot of like the interesting percussive layers going into the guitar and blast drums and the really quick, because the drums had a lot going on and a lot of different grooves there, especially. And actually Reason Beyond All Comprehension had some really interesting offbeat rhythms with like some of the cymbal parts and the kicks. We didn't just stick with kick and snare and kick and snare. The drums had a wonderful fluidity and a variety of different grooves, and I was just really impressed with the display we had there rhythmically. I liked all the different fun things we were doing. But with Automatic Catastrophe, we had the piano strings come through at the end as if to maybe insinuate that we were trying to maybe... I wouldn't be surprised if we went from Automatic Catastrophe into Fortress or something like that. Or maybe we were trying to sort of like just have piano for a bit and the next song would start with the guitar and drums or the bass or something like that. I'm not sure. Either way, it's dope. But I've spoken about the drums. I thought that the guitar parts were wonderful there. We exhibited a nice sense of flair with the rhythmed and chugged parts. There were some interesting chromatic single string bits as well, rolling around with legato technique there. We had some lead harmonies there and some melodies which were very wistful. Sometimes they had major interludes which modulated, which were kind of nice. They were a bit upstep. Sometimes they were almost more in the ether of the thing, and they had a sense of like loss or turmoil to them, which was unexpected and almost a little bit kind of like uncomfortable, but you know that it was to suit the mood of the track, and metal doesn't always have to sound like a box of fluffies. Stuck with the root notes, nice and thick and full, and as I've said, nice and thick and full. That's what I say about a lot of bass, but a lot of bass is just like that. There's a bit of kick with it, maybe a bit of distortion in there, a bit of gain in there as well, but it did the job it needed to in the low end and didn't overstep the boundaries. Occasionally had just the bass with the drums there, so you could really get a feel for the tone of it, but it melded really well onto the guitars, and that's kind of what matters when you need that heaviness. The keys were nice and articulate on the right hand there, and the left hand was great too. The phrasing for the start of Fortress was strong. We established a prominent motif there, and we also finished Automatic Catastrophe quite nicely with it. My poster just fell down over there. It gave me a hell of a fright. But like we did really well as well with the strings, which was really slick. I thought that the strings were a nice complement to some of the piano parts we were doing, and they made a lot of sense. And so ultimately the structuring of these tracks, we showed we could do longer and shorter parts, and I think it shows a composition maturity there with our songwriting, and it makes me very confident that when I listen to Relentless Pursuit's music, I'm going to enjoy it, and I can trust with the consistency of the quality there. I mean, like, granted, if I was to say anything there, like at this stage, I listen to the way these are written, and I don't really think you can necessarily improve it. It's just, it's not just major and minors and having one idea and doing it for 5 minutes. We're really making an effort to make it something special. The themes were separate per track, but we also not too much. We liked our minor chords. We occasionally went to some chromatics. We occasionally went for some majors where they weren't expected, but we liked our heavy stuff even when we were not necessarily talking about heavy stuff, and I think that that's just because we want that oomph, that sound. I think that dedication to that is great. Like, granted, we didn't just have it heavy all the time, don't get me wrong, but there were moments with the growled vocals and the guitar, bass, and drums there where like something we might have said something I wouldn't have necessarily picked for it to be, for those two to come together, but it still was nice. And I think as a closing note, I think that the shorter tracks there, I honestly think that if Relentless Pursuit continues to make music, do through composed, we can handle it. We can go on journeys. It suits well. Might not be what everyone, it might be a hot take, but to me, I think we do it well. So the studio recording, mixing, and mastering, with the understanding that like I understand how difficult it is to do this kind of stuff, and with the understanding that I don't have a multi-million-dollar studio, what I will say is I think the vast majority of this was really good. I liked the way that the vocals sounded. I thought the growls were especially well done. The guitar riffs sometimes had a little bit too much low end for my tastes, but I think otherwise they were solid. I understand why we had that. We wanted to have heavy guitar parts. The leads didn't have that lower resonance. They sat nicely in the mid to high range. The bass was wonderful. The drums sometimes had so many notes that it almost became one big kind of blur, and that would be therefore be quieter than what we had going on with the vocals. And that's not a complaint, it's just a proxy of having that much oomph to it. Sometimes that's why slowing down, like we did sometimes, had more kind of power to it, because you could actually hear the individual notes. I'm not doing the boomer take of, oh, it needs to be slow to be good. It's just I'm leveling about the leveling, if that makes sense. Things were nice in the stereo field. We did play around with a bit of automation of some parts going from the right to the left, etc. That was really cool. I like that. That was good fun. There was dynamic range there, as I mentioned, about the different levels of the vocals occasionally. So the bus compression limiting was handled. And that's basically my review of these 3 tracks from an act named Relentless Pursuit. This is part 2 of the Mechanisms of Destruction review, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go check out their various social medias and their YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as you the hell more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next review. Spiderhands Out.